Are you in the market for a new Android TV box? Well, today we're going to take a close look at the 2017 edition NVIDIA Shield TV. Coming right up. What's up YouTube? Tech Savvy Buyer here, and as always I bring you guys quality tech reviews, tips and tricks videos, and build tutorials. So you've been in the market trying to get your hands on a new Android TV box, and you've come across the NVIDIA Shield 2017 edition. Well, let's take a closer look at what are some of the features that this box offers that really separates it from the competition. So at first glance, this device is actually pretty small. It is definitely a lot smaller than you'd expect, and compared to my hand, you could see it's roughly fitting in the full size of my hand. Over there we've got the older 2015 edition, which you could see is definitely much more bigger than the new one. I think on NVIDIA's website it says that it is about 40% smaller than the original model. So turning around to the back, if we take a look at some of these ports it offers, you've got two USB 3.0 ports, one HDMI 2.0 port, a gigabit Ethernet port, and the port for the power cable. And that's pretty good for connectivity. Pretty much hits all the spots that you practically need in terms of using it. But we did see a little bit of difference compared to the older model, which has a little more options on the back. So on top of including everything that's on the newer edition, what it doesn't have, what it does have in addition is a micro SD slot and a micro USB port on the back. I've never actually really used this functionality of this port, but I can imagine it being useful as just another port to connect something via USB. But the SD slot was a good functionality to expand the onboard memory versus having to use a flash drive or a USB stick for that. So under the hood of this guy, you've got about 3 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of flash storage, which as I mentioned you can expand. It's got the Tegra X1 processor in it, and along with the 256 core GPU. So NVIDIA states that this is pretty much the same internals that were on the 2015 edition, and the reason for that was because it is powerful enough to not really need an upgrade according to them. Alright guys, so let's dive deep into looking at the controller that's included in the box. So what I'm holding is the 2015 edition Shield controller. As you can see, it's a lot bigger. It's definitely, in my opinion, not as ergonomical as the 2017 edition. It does have a lot of good features in it, which I use pretty often when I use it for media purposes. So there's the volume control buttons on the bottom, and then you've got scrubbing over here to kind of use as an interface as well. There's also the interface on the front, which is kind of like a touchpad and response. You can use that to turn the Shield on and off. On the top here we've got a 3.5mm headphone jack and the micro USB port for charging capability. Overall the buttons feel pretty tactile. To press them they definitely have a pretty clicky response. Overall, while the buttons do feel good, this isn't something that I'm super comfortable holding for extended periods of time. And because of that, I don't really use this to game on my Shield TV, the 2015 edition at least, pretty much at all. I'd rather hook up another controller to it for gaming purposes. Now, fast forward to the 2017 edition, the story's kind of changed. This is a lot more ergonomical. I mean, you see these kind of weird curves and edges and stuff, but it overall feels a lot more comfortable when you're holding onto it. I mean, this guy, honestly, it reminds me of the original Xbox controller that came out back in, what, 2000 or something like that. But this guy feels a lot more refreshed, up to date, and it still has all the same features like the original one did. You still have your charging port on the top for micro USB, and you still have a 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom to listen to whatever media you're playing on there in your headphones versus bothering everyone else around you. You'll still have the same functionality. Now the buttons that were on this side of the panel originally have moved down to here, but you still have the scrub feature. And if you notice, they even changed the joysticks. So this was a little bit more smooth, I'd say, and now they've kind of given it some ribbed edges around the edge actually, which makes it a lot more responsive. overall. Button feel, same thing, maybe even feels a little more tactile, especially the shoulder buttons. So you can hear how clicky these are. And then if you look at this one, only the back ones are clicky, but the front ones are, I mean, I'm pressing that pretty hard. There's not much click going on there. So, in my opinion, this is a big win over the 2015 edition. It's a great refresh, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it to game for extended periods of time. Alright, now we've got both of the Shield voice controls that come out of the box as well. I know in the past you could buy the box that just comes with one of these instead of the controller, but the one in this review obviously has this guy and the Shield controller that I reviewed right before this. So, over the top, it looks pretty much like it's the same thing, but in reality, it's not. So on my left is the 2015 edition, and on my right is the 2017 edition. So right off the bat, you can see on the bottom, there's a lack of ports. So the new guy doesn't have the same functionality as the old one does. The old one has a rechargeable battery in it, which I think was a great idea, and also included that 3.5mm headphone jack that you could use similar to what was on the Shield controller. Now, in this one, you have to use two CR2032 batteries, and I'll show you. There's a little pin here that if you press with a pen, it ejects this tray, and that's how you get the battery. Now, NVIDIA claims that this lasts for a year, but the one that comes out of the box is not even fully charged, at least the one that I got wasn't fully charged, and I've read several users online having the same issue. The old one, you didn't have this problem. You'd have to recharge it probably once every 2 or 3 months, at least based on the usage that I had. Could vary for some people depending on how heavy usage that you put on it, but overall I think they kind of took a step back with changing the remote. There was nothing wrong with this one, and I really think they should have just stuck with this one. So, welcome back. We just took a pretty close look at the 2017 edition Shield TV. My overall experience with this has been pretty good. I really don't have a lot of complaints with it, aside from their change to the controller, which I've mentioned. I mean, I wasn't a big fan that they took out the rechargeable battery function in it, and they switched it to having to replace it with these batteries that I don't think anyone really just has laying around. It's probably something you gotta go out to the store and look for. But other than that, is it still worth it to buy it, or should you wait for this to come on sale, or should you just avoid it altogether? So let's go over to the cheat sheet that I've made that kind of helps guide me through making the right choice. I mean, again, this comes from my background of having over 10 years of experience as a procurement professional, so I look at things a little bit more critically before just deciding to dish out money on something, regardless of how good I think it is. So let's hop over to that. I'll show you that, and we'll kind of walk through what my thought process was on it, and if it works for you, then great. So I'll see you guys in a second. So this is the infamous cheat sheet that I like to use for all my review videos to kind of help guide what kind of score we should be giving it and what the ultimate decision should be. So I'll kind of just walk through each line and what my thought process was, and you guys can take it for what it's worth, but if it doesn't work for you, I absolutely respect that and hope you do end up making the right choice that works for you. So I separated it out by 3 categories, obviously, as you know. Either you should buy it now, wait for sale, or don't buy it at all. And simply just had a couple questions that I ask myself, which requires a little bit of research on the product so that you get a sense of what it is. And you know, the answer to each question might be more important than others, and so to kind of distinguish that, I've assigned different weights for each one to get a total score of 100%. So just off the bat, to keep things kind of quick and simple, if I want to rate something as a buy it now, I look at a few things. So, is the price based on the actual value? And so in this case, are you getting what you pay for when considering the Shield TV? I personally think you absolutely are. It might be a little bit more overpriced compared to competition, but you're not paying just for the NVIDIA brand name in this case, but this is a powerhouse that packs a lot more features and processing power than most other competitive boxes out there that you could use for any sort of streaming capability. Is it made of premium materials? Absolutely. It's got a very heavy, solid feel. It doesn't feel like it was cheaply made. It doesn't feel like they skimped out on quality or gave it, any sort of hindrance that would impact its performance or impact its ability to do its main function. Does it offer more features than competition? I think that's an easy yes, it does. You can game on this. You can't game on a lot of other Kodi boxes or TV boxes that you can look out there on Android. By the way, I failed to mention, you can load Kodi on this bad boy, and it is blazing fast. So it loads up things really quick, not just Kodi, but apps on there go through extremely quick, and it's just overall a pretty good process to experience. Is it currently on sale? No, it's not. Is it cheaper than competition? Absolutely not. So overall, it scored 65% on my buy now category of impact. Going down to the wait for sale, does this come on sale often? Not really. I saw it come down to $149 on Black Friday, and other than that, Best Buy will occasionally put down $20 here or there. Not something that I would that it would be worth waiting for, that I would wait for. I'm not gonna sit and wait for a $200 item to drop down to $180 before I decide, okay, now I should buy it. And I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. Is it overpriced compared to competition? I do think it is overpriced compared to competition, but back to the initial point, it's based on its actual value. So if it's a better product, it is going to be more expensive. Is there a newer version available? Not that I currently know of. I searched online to see if I could find if NVIDIA had any statements showing that there might be a 2018 edition, and there isn't. Not yet, at least. Is there a major holiday around the corner? So I thought this was important, and I gave it a pretty significant weight, because let's say you're close to Black Friday and you know that the probability of something coming on sale is pretty high. You might be better off just waiting for it to come on sale before taking the leap to buy it right away. Is the market oversupplied? No, I don't think it is. I think it's meeting its demand and supply ratio perfectly, which is why the overall score on this category was a 10%. Last reason to suggest if you should buy it. Is this made of cheap materials? Nope. Does it have a lot of negative reviews? It does not. Are there better alternatives at better prices? Not that I saw. Is there anything wrong with how it fulfills its primary purpose? So no, it actually does its primary purpose and then some. You can game on it. I keep repeating that because that's probably the most important factor for a geeky person like me that likes to game. Is it overpriced compared to competition? This actually is a yes. It is overpriced compared to competition, but again, it's not significant enough to the point where I would say it's way overpriced and I don't want to buy it. But overall, as you can see from my scoring metrics here, this is what I use with all my tech reviews, like I mentioned, and this is a solid buy now. I would say if you're in the market looking for an NVIDIA Shield, go out and get one. Don't wait for a sale. Don't skip on it. It fulfills more than what it's capable, or more than what you're probably going to be using it for. A lot of people just buy it as an Android box, and that's kind of how I reviewed this video. I didn't really show off all the features, and I wish I had, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with this from a gaming perspective. A lot more than you can do with, let's say, an Apple TV or a Roku or any other kind of boxes out there that you can use for streaming capability. And not only that, I think it's one of the only one that has true 4K and HDR and at 60 frames per second, and you'll notice it, especially in gaming. It supports 4K 60 frames per second as long as your graphic card does. I have a GTX 1080 Ti, which is obviously an NVIDIA brand, and it works really well with that. I'm also fortunate enough to have Ethernet wired in my entire house, so I don't receive any kind of lag when I'm plugged in over the net versus doing it over Wi-Fi, and so it just results in a really good experience for gaming. And I can't really compliment this product enough. I think it's an awesome product that they made, and I would give it 100% tech-savvy buyer approval of purchase. Go out there and buy it now if you have an option to. Don't be on the fence. Don't wait for it to come on sale. Don't skip on it. So guys, that brings us pretty much to the end of the video. As you saw, this is definitely a buy now. Doesn't really come on sale that often, as we mentioned before. It's something that's outbeating its competition by a mile, and of course you can game on it, so who wouldn't want something that you can game on as well? I mean, I really just reviewed the aspect of having the ability to use this as purely an Android box, but the biggest selling point of this is how it's really capable at gaming. I do apologize for not diving deep into the operating system and kind of showing off the flashy features of it. I will add, a little bit better production quality in my videos coming up soon, but for the time being, I think that there's a lot of material out there that you guys can go and view on other YouTube videos, and you can also check out different written reviews that explain the same thing, kind of get a sense of it. But just to tap on that just a little bit, if you play any kind of games connected to a desktop, so if you've got an NVIDIA card that supports game stream on the NVIDIA Shield, as long as you're on a wired network versus a Wi-Fi network, you're really not going to experience that much lag. Now, would I recommend this if you're playing Call of Duty or if you're playing a fast shooter or something that needs like critical response times? Probably not, even though it's really, really responsive. It's still, you know, that's not something I would game on it for. But every other game, like a racing game, a sports game, an MMO, or something that doesn't require a keyboard and mouse, let's clarify that, obviously, that you can play with a controller pretty easily. Yeah, definitely, dude. Don't even think twice about this. This is something that you need to go out and get like right away. Don't wait for it to come on sale. The cheapest it's ever gotten down, like I mentioned, was only 150 bucks during Black Friday, so that's not something I would sit on for a year. But I hope this review was useful for you guys, and I hope it helps you make the right choice for you. Obviously, it might be a little bit different than what I'm doing here or what use it really has for me personally, but if it was, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe below, because you know I'll be coming back with more content and more reviews really soon. So see you guys on the next one.